The alarm on the station wall screamed the moment she kicked my door open, and I dropped the tool in my hand before I even understood what I was looking at. Her armor was cracking apart across her chest, and thin lines of pale light were leaking out of the broken seams like blood made of electricity. She did not scream. She did not ask for help. She just stood there in my doorway, 7 feet tall, breathing hard, staring at me with eyes that told me she had maybe 20 minutes left before whatever was happening inside that armor finished happening to her. My name is Liam Bennett, and I fix broken machines for a living on a small trading station called Perch, out near a border nobody powerful cares about. That night, a raider convoy had locked onto our position, and the station computer was already counting down the minutes until they reached docking range. Everyone else was sealing themselves into shelters. She had come to my shop instead. I did not know her name yet. I only knew what everyone on this side of the border knew about her kind. The Vashtir, tall gray warriors who grow their armor into their own bodies instead of building it like a machine. I had heard that when Vashtir armor breaks, it does not just stop protecting them, it starts killing them slowly, and there is no way to stop that once it begins, except for someone who understands exactly how the internal weave works. I was the only person on this station who had ever touched that kind of weave before, and I had only done it once, on a training model, years ago, with someone standing over my shoulder the whole time telling me what to do. Now I was alone, with real cracking plates in front of me, a countdown clock on the wall, and a raider convoy closing in on a station that could not defend itself if she went down. She did not say a single word. She walked to my workbench and laid the broken chest plate flat on the surface, then sat in the chair beside it, watching me with a stillness that felt heavier than any scream could have been. I grabbed my scanner with hands that were not as steady as I wanted them to be, and ran it across the cracked ceramite. The reading came back wrong in a way that made my stomach drop. The internal fiber was not just damaged, it was unraveling, thread by thread, and every thread that broke sent a small shock straight into her nervous system. I could see it on the display, a slow climb in her pain signature, ticking upward the same way the station countdown clock was ticking downward. 20 minutes for the raiders to arrive, maybe 15 minutes before her nervous system reached a level of shock that her body could not recover from. I had less time than I thought. I told her what I saw, speaking fast, because there was no room left for a slow conversation. I told her I could try to stabilize the weave, but I had never done it on a live soldier before, only on a dead training frame, and if I made one wrong connection, the shock to her system could happen all at once instead of slowly. She looked at me, and for the first time she spoke, her voice low and rough like she rarely used it. "Fix it," she said. That was all. 2 words, and then she went silent again, gripping the edge of the workbench so hard her knuckles turned pale under her gray skin. I opened my tool case and got to work. The first layer of the plate came away easier than I expected, revealing a lattice of fine biothreads underneath, some glowing faintly, some already dark and lifeless. I had studied enough about Vashtir armor to know that these threads carried more than power. They carried a kind of memory, a signal that connected the wearer to the armor itself, almost like a second nervous system layered over the first. I found the first break near her collarbone. A thread snapped clean through, sparking weakly every few seconds. I reached for my sealant kit, my hands moving on instinct now that the shock of the moment had passed into pure focus, and pressed the smallest connector I owned against the 2 broken ends. The moment they touched, she gasped and her whole body went rigid. I pulled back instantly, afraid I had made things worse, but she shook her head once, sharp, and told me to keep going. The threads were sensitive. Every reconnection sent a jolt through her, but leaving them broken was worse. I understood then that this repair would not be gentle for either of us. It would be a fight against time, thread by thread, each one a small risk that could either save her or push her system past the point of recovery. The countdown clock on my shop wall ticked past the 15-minute mark. I heard the station announcement system crackle overhead, warning that unknown ships had entered scanning range. My hands kept moving anyway. There was nothing else I could do that mattered more than what was on this table in front of me. I worked through the second layer, sealing 3 more threads, each one sending a visible tremor through her shoulders, but she did not pull away, and she did not tell me to stop. Sweat had started forming along my own forehead despite the cold air in my shop, because every connector I placed had to be exact. A single misalignment could send a full surge through her nervous system instead of a controlled trickle, and I had no way to reverse that once it happened. Then I found the 4th thread, buried deeper than the others, and my scanner flagged something strange about it. Instead of one clean signal, it showed 2 signals tangled together, one strong and steady, matching her own heartbeat, and one faint, almost gone, like an echo of something that used to be alive inside that same thread. I did not understand it yet, and I did not have time to ask questions. The station clock read 12 minutes. I kept working. The fifth and sixth threads went smoother, my hands finding a rhythm now. A strange kind of calm settling over the panic, the way it sometimes does when there is too much happening to feel afraid of any single part of it. She grunted quietly with each connection but held still, trusting hands she barely knew with a system that could end her life if I made even one mistake. At the 10-minute mark, the station lights flickered, and a low tone sounded through the walls, the signal that meant the raider ships had entered final approach. I felt my pulse jump, but I forced my focus back onto the plate in front of me. If she went down now, unarmored, the raiders would find no resistance at all on this station, and everyone hiding in those shelters would have nothing standing between them and whatever those raiders wanted. I moved faster, sealing the seventh thread, then the eighth, watching her pain signature on my scanner rise and fall instead of climbing in one steady line toward danger. It was working. Slowly, imperfectly, but working. Then I reached the ninth thread, the one closest to the center of the plate, directly over where a human heart would sit, and my scanner lit up with the same strange double signal I had seen earlier, stronger now, clearer. One signal was hers, warm and alive. The other was faint, cold, unmoving, like a voice that had stopped speaking a long time ago but had never been erased. I paused, my hand hovering over the connector, unsure what would happen if I sealed a thread that was carrying two signals instead of one. She noticed my hesitation immediately. "Do not stop," she said, her voice tight. I told her what I saw, as clearly and quickly as I could, because I refused to touch something I did not understand without telling her first. I told her there were two signals tangled in this thread, hers and another one, fainter, almost gone. Her whole body went still in a different way than before, not from pain, but from something else entirely. She looked at the plate, then at me, and for a long moment she said nothing while the station countdown clock ticked past 8 minutes. Finally she spoke, quiet now, the sharp edge gone from her voice. "That is Kest," she said. "He wore the matched set to this armor. We were bonded before a battle 3 seasons ago, and he did not come back from it. The Forge priests told me to let the signal die with the rest of the plate. I could not do it. I brought it here instead, hoping someone would know how to save it without lying to me about what was actually left to save." I understood then why she had walked past every other shop on this station and come straight to mine. Why she had said nothing for days before tonight. Why she carried this broken plate like it was something far heavier than metal and thread. I told her the truth, the same way I always try to. I said I could not bring back a living signal from a thread that had gone quiet that long ago. That was gone, and pretending otherwise would only hurt her more later. But I told her I could stabilize the thread so it held that signal steady instead of losing it to more damage, so it would remain there, quiet but present, instead of disappearing completely the way the Forge priests wanted. She nodded once, sharp and certain, the same way she had nodded at everything else that night. I sealed the ninth thread with more care than any before it, watching the double signal settle into a steady low hum instead of a flickering warning. It held. Neither signal vanished. Her heartbeat stayed strong, and the second, fainter signal stayed exactly where it was, present but silent, like a name carved carefully into stone instead of written in sand. The station clock read 5 minutes when I moved to the final threads. Outside, I heard the first heavy sound of something docking against the station hull, distant but unmistakable. The raiders had arrived early, faster than the countdown had predicted. My hands shook for just a second, then steadied again, because stopping now was not an option for either of us. I sealed the 10th thread, then the 11th, watching her pain signature drop steadily on my scanner instead of climbing. 3 threads left. The sound of boots against metal echoed somewhere down the station corridor outside my shop, muffled but growing closer. She stood up from the chair despite the unfinished plate, testing her balance, her jaw tight with focus instead of fear. 2 more minutes, she said. That is all I can give you before I have to move, armored or not. I told her I needed 4 minutes, not 2. But I also knew arguing would not change the Raiders' schedule. I worked faster than I had ever worked on anything in my life, sealing the 12th thread with hands that barely felt like my own anymore, driven by pure will instead of steady nerves. The shop door rattled once, hard, from something striking it out in the corridor. Not an explosion, just a heavy impact, testing the lock. She turned toward the sound immediately, every muscle in her body shifting into a stance built for fighting, even with her chest plate only half repaired and hanging open along one side. I sealed the 13th thread while she stood between me and the door, her body angled to take whatever came through first. My scanner showed 1 thread left, the smallest one, tucked near the base of the plate where it would meet the flight suit underneath. The door rattled again, louder, the lock beginning to give. I finished the last connection with a single motion, sealing the final thread just as the door burst open and two armed raiders stepped through, their weapons already raised toward us. She did not wait for the plate to fully close around her. She moved the instant the door gave way, faster than I could track, closing the distance between herself and the first raider before he could aim properly. The unfinished plate flared bright along its seams as it locked into place mid-motion, the repaired threads holding steady exactly the way I had hoped they would. I stayed low behind my workbench, my heart hammering, watching her fight in a space too small for real distance, using speed and precision instead of raw force, disarming the first raider and turning his own weapon aside before the second one could get a clear shot at either of us. It was over in seconds, not minutes, the two raiders subdued and unarmed on my shop floor. The station alarm still blaring overhead, but the immediate danger in this room already finished. She stood over them, breathing hard, her repaired armor humming quietly along every seam, intact for the first time in longer than she had probably let herself remember. Outside, station security finally arrived, shouting orders, taking the raiders into custody, sealing the corridor behind them. The rest of the convoy, I would learn later, had been turned away entirely once they realized the station had someone capable of fighting back stationed right at the docking point. She turned back toward me once the corridor quieted, and for a long moment she simply stood there, looking at the plate covering her chest, running one hand slowly along the seam where the ninth thread sat sealed beneath the surface. Then, without a word, she reached up and touched the exact spot on the plate where that second signal lived, quiet and steady beneath her own heartbeat. A single tear ran down her cheek, slow and silent, and it fell directly onto that same spot on the armor, right over where Kest's signal rested. She did not sob. She did not shake. She simply stood there, letting that one tear fall exactly where she meant it to fall, like it was the only goodbye she had left to give, and the only thank you she knew how to offer in return. Then she looked at me, her voice steady again, though quieter than before. "Every forge in my empire told me to let him fade completely," she said. "You are the first hands in this galaxy who asked what I wanted, instead of telling me what I should feel about losing him." I did not have a clever answer for that, so I simply nodded, the same short, certain nod she had given me all night, because some things deserve to be answered in the same quiet language they were offered in. She stayed on the station 3 more days while her armor settled fully into its repaired state, and during those 3 days, she finally began to speak more, not about the battle that took Kest from her, but about small things. The way the light hit the docking bay in the morning, the taste of station coffee she had never tried before, the strange quiet of a place that did not immediately treat her like a weapon to be feared or a tool to be used. On the morning she left, she stopped at my shop door one last time, not to ask for anything, but simply to say a proper farewell, something she told me her people rarely bothered to give anyone outside their own kind. "Some warriors carry weapons into their next battle," she said. "I carry the ones I have lost instead, and now, because of you, I carry him steady, instead of carrying his silence like a wound that never stopped bleeding." She left the station that afternoon, her armor fully sealed, standing straighter than she had the night she first walked into my shop, and I stood in my doorway watching her ship pull away from the docking bay until it disappeared completely into the dark beyond the station lights. I never saw her again after that day, but I still think about that single tear sometimes, falling exactly where she aimed it, landing on a signal she refused to let fade, kept alive not because I brought back something that was already gone, but because I was willing to listen closely enough to understand exactly what she needed kept, and honest enough to tell her the truth about what I could and could not do for her. Some people ask me why I still take strange jobs on this station, even the ones nobody else wants to touch. I always give them the same simple answer. Sometimes the most important thing you can fix is not the machine in front of you, but the person standing beside it, waiting to see if you will actually listen before you start working.